So without further ado, here is an orientation to the GKT, as well as a bit of an orientation to how these sessions will be run. So yeah, that is our illustrious chapter president, Andre, who will be discussing how to orient yourself in English education in Korea, what Hagwon owners want, how to meet teaching demands more effectively. He has had a continuous presence in this industry since 2001. We have Andisiwe, who will be talking about how the EPIC program in Hagwons do or do not meet teacher needs, how to run classes practically, and the importance of motivation and feeling competent as a teacher. She has 5 years of teaching experience in Korea, most of it with the EPIC program, but a little bit in the Hagwon environment as well. And next we have Park ShinYeop, who will be talking about the gap between the expectation and reality of English education from the perspective of a former student turned Hagwon teacher. But yeah, this is me. I'll be talking about a preview of incorporating insights from linguistics and ELT theory to enhance Hagwon teaching practice. And I have more than 6 years of teaching experience in the Hagwon environment. I've also TA'd in linguistics and ESL at a university in North America. And I'm the project lead of the GKT. So what is the GKT? Well, coming straight from the manual is a quote on the next slide, which is that the Gyeonggi KOTESOL Teacher Training Program, which is a mouthful, so we've been calling it the GKT, is an experimental teacher training program meant to provide training and support to both Hagwon and public school teachers, promote KOTESOL within the Gyeonggi province, and increase KOTESOL membership. So we have a lot that we're trying to do with this program, but primary to it is support for Hagwon teachers, entry-level Hagwon teachers, and we'd also like to serve public school teachers as well if we can. And on the next slide, we'll be talking about accomplishments. And we would like to introduce trainees to the wider worlds of TEFL, education, and linguistics in a way that they can connect these advanced concepts to their daily teaching context, let them reflect on their teaching in a developed way, and spur interest in further professional development as an EFL instructor here in Korea. So essentially, improving practice, addressing theory, and hoping to fill some gaps and make people more competent and more motivated teachers. And we are looking for highly experienced teachers from a variety of backgrounds and expertises who can inform trainees of the wide breadth of ELT and EFL teaching theory and practice from any angle. Because this is a huge field with a lot of different voices and a lot of different ways of doing things. And we need all the help we can get. And this could go from just traditional grammar vocabulary, which might be more my specialty, all the way up to AI and how to use AI in the Hagwon teaching environment, in the public school teaching environment. It goes all kinds of ways. So if you are competent and motivated, you want to help out, well, join this crew right here. Brett Burton is a co-developer on this project, as is Andre. I'm the project lead, and Joseph Van Doorn also is involved with this as well. He is the Gyoko academic chair. So why we're here today? We're hoping that you, our talented and creative KOTESOL members, associates, and friends will assist us in creating and delivering workshops for the GKT, ensure the quality of the training that we give, promote the GKT to trainees and other instructors and organizations, and form relationships on our behalf and on behalf of Gyoko and the National KOTESOL organization as well, because we do kind of operate nested within that whole framework. So if you're passionate about helping teachers succeed, you want to help people better their practice, you want to make a positive difference, this is your chance. So join us if you will. But before we hear from our panel, each speaker, as I said before, will present for roughly 5 to 10 minutes, and there will be about 5 minutes or so for discussion afterwards. This will be moderated by Andre, who will give the audience a chance to raise questions and give critiques. We ask that this is done positively, and I don't think with the current group of attendees, this will be any issue. We at Gyoko are a pretty friendly group, and I'm really happy, by the way, to be among you, and thank you for your patience. So lob all the critiques at me for not getting this PowerPoint working in the first place. But as you do so, the audio will be muted throughout. So please use the Zoom raise hand function if you would like to speak. And then Andre will answer your request by unmuting you. And then this will go in the order that the participants have raised their hands in the session. So without further ado, please welcome our first speaker, the chapter president, Andre Jacobs. Take it away.
So my presentation title is quite wordy, It's how to orient yourself to English education in Korea, what Hagwon owners want, and how to meet teaching demands more effectively in less than 5 minutes. That's what I'm hoping for. Okay, so firstly, English education in South Korea. We have public schools, hagwons, which are private academies, international schools, universities, and private tutors. So you'll see out of those five, and there are more, out of those five areas, four of those are basically for profit. So other than public schools, all the other four, the reason the education is happening is because it's supposed to make profit for somebody. So I think that changes the dynamic slightly from public schools. My experience in public schools has mostly been as an after-school teacher. So I don't think I've ever taught as part of the actual curriculum. So I've never had to teach public school curriculum. I always had to do after-school stuff. But the feeling I've had, and in conversation with other public school teachers, it sounds like we deal with the same kind of issues as teachers in hagwons, in international school universities, and private tutors do. All right, so key characteristics of English education in Korea. I think this is kind of important because this orients you to what you think you're expected to do and what you actually end up doing. The first thing that everybody finds when they come here is that it's test focused. Maybe not so much for the younger students, because what I found is from kindergarten to about fourth grade elementary school, parents want the kids to have fun while they're learning English. And that in itself makes things complicated. But once the kids hit fifth grade and sixth grade elementary school, the parents suddenly get very serious about what they want the kids to be able to do. And from that point onward, they want kids to start preparing for middle school exams, high school exams, and finally the university entrance exam. And those exams focus on grammar, reading, and reading comprehension mostly. So when you get to that point, the focus shifts from speaking to understanding grammar, and being able to answer comprehension questions on reading. This is important because this has a lot to do with what you're supposed to or expected to focus on in the hagwon. Now, these days there is a growing emphasis on speaking. I find more and more directors that I've worked with, they want they want the students to speak more. But that's not necessarily better because you find that most students don't have anything to say. So it's very difficult to just speak more. When I landed in Korea, the philosophy was immersion. So the idea was uh, in your classroom, the students should be in an English immersive environment, which is completely ridiculous because you're one foreigner with like 8 to 10 to 15 kids. So there's not a lot of English immersion happening there because it's mostly Korean children. Now, the focus has shifted in my experience to speaking, but only in a very narrow band. So most of the focus is still on grammar and reading comprehension. Then the third thing that one needs to know about the Korean environment is that it's extremely competitive. And coming from South Africa and not a very competitive environment, this was a bit of a shock to me. And I've had Korean students come from the US where they spent a couple of years in elementary school, and then they come to schools in Korea and they're shocked as well because the whole environment in Korean schools and academies are just super competitive. And it feels like it's gotten worse in the past 5 to 10 years, where students don't want to work in groups anymore. They don't want to help each other anymore because it's just this extremely competitive environment all the time. So it's very difficult to deal with that for me as well in that kind of environment. But there are ways around it, and there are ways of using it to your benefit. Though it does take a little bit of practice, and there is quite a bit of nastiness as well. Then the question is, what do hagwon owners want? Money, of course, because it's a business. So you can't really expect anything other than that. The bottom line is student retention, because the longer you retain a student, obviously the more money you make. But on the other hand, different Hagwon owners have a different focus on actual education. Some Hagwon owners really do care, but even though they do care, they still have to take care of business. So that influences what you do or what you're expected to do in the classroom as well. One of the ironies is that to become a Hagwon owner in Korea, you don't need a background in education. That's insane, because if you want to become a recruiter in Korea, you must have a background in education. So I just found that really odd. But anyway, so this is the environment that you have to deal with. Now, how do you do it? Very shortly. Firstly, you have to learn to adapt very quickly, because that's what the environment requires of you, which means flexibility is key. That means that your schedule can change at any moment. You can get new students in your class who's not at the same level as the other students, and which completely disrupts your whole flow, obviously. So how you deal with this is preparation, backup activities, and then, of course, experience helps, because in the beginning, this is really, really frustrating because you have a certain idea of how things should work and they just don't. So you're expected to adapt to an environment which is very difficult to adapt to be fair. Then the second key point is building relationships. I mean, this is really, really important because you work with these people in a high pressure environment. So you really need to get along with your co-teachers, with the director, with the admin staff, obviously with the students. But it's really hard because it's a high pressure environment. Everybody knows it, everybody feels it. So the effort that it takes to build relationships is quite substantial, but it pays out. It really does. And then there's respect cultural norms, which is doesn't actually need any mention. And then also clarifying expectations early. That's very difficult for newbie teachers because they have no idea what's expected of them or what the environment expects of them as well. So that takes getting used to and takes training as well. Maintaining professional boundaries. This is true for any kind of work environment, but especially in this kind of environment because the boundaries are very fluid. Your director will often treat you as a friend one day, and then on the next day he will tell you what to do as if you're a soldier. So it's very difficult to walk that line, but it's important. So you kind of have to figure out where the boundaries are, and then there are some points where you'll have to remind the director as well. I work for you, so you have certain responsibilities too. Though that's pretty tricky in that power dynamic as well. Embracing the culture, that is also very important, but not easy to do, especially if you're fresh off the boat, because you don't understand the culture. You don't know why things work the way they do. I find in the Korean environment, you're often expected to do things outside your comfort zone. And from the Western perspective, people really don't like it, but it does pay dividends. So in the beginning, it's best to just go along with what you're expected to do in your environment and then learn where the give is later on, because you'll often find that if you do the things that's culturally expected of yourself and Korean teachers to do, that will create some space where the Hagwon director will be more conducive to you in future if you have different priorities or there are certain things you don't want to do. But I mean, that's also a fine line. So it takes time. And then finally, grow a thick skin. So like Muhammad Ali said, float like a butterfly, but don't sting, especially in the beginning. Just keep making that honey. So I know a lot of teachers takes things very personally, and it's hard not to do when you're completely overwhelmed in a new culture. But a lot of things that happen to you will not be personal. It's something that you're gonna have to learn to roll with, and then create a space for yourself to be more assertive in. But yeah, the culture in Korea is slightly different in that way. And then, oh, final message is try to have some fun because it's difficult in the Hagwon environment. It's stressful and doing the same thing every day, going through the same motions every day is soul crushing. So you really have to find something in that environment that gives you some value too. And it sounds glib, but it's true. You have to, because I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm lucky. I enjoy the kids most days because I learn a lot from them, but it is definitely taxing and it's tiring as well. So you have to develop that ability to find the little fun pockets and the entertainment in what the kids do as well. Anyway, so that's me. Now I can see everybody again.
Good job.
Thank you, Red. Okay. So are there any questions or feedback, or are there some things that you're strongly disagreeing with? Okay. Yes, Greg.
Get myself too. Okay.
Yes.
So well done. Um, the you mentioned that the things are shifting, and I think it's been shifting for a while from a sort of a grammar focus to speaking, which I didn't realize that in the curriculum, the Korean curriculum, that this is something that's happening, that they actually are trying to focus on speaking. And it is no surprise whatsoever that students struggle with that because, as you said, they don't have anything to say. But it seems like this is a little bit upside down from my perspective, in that wouldn't them doing, and maybe they are doing this, practicing listening as part of that, getting them to speak. Because if they can't listen and have some familiarity with verbalizing sounds like reading out loud or listening to shadowing, whatever that might be, and then speaking comes after. Is that sort of part of the process that they're going through, or is this just pie in the sky?
To be quite honest with you, I don't know what the approach in the schools is regarding that. I don't know. Andy might be able to tell us more.
Okay.
But I mean, as far as how to accomplish this, there are no rules. It's like the Wild West. Everybody just does whatever they think will work, and that includes the directors as well. Even franchise directors who has a program, when it comes to the application, it really depends on the director and on the teachers. So on the quality of the director and the teacher. So I don't think there's any set method. People just do whatever they think will work. Yeah, but I mean, listening and shadowing. I've been seeing shadowing quite a bit. So shadowing is in fashion now. So listening and shadowing. Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wesley?
I disagree with all of what you said. I think it was no, I'm kidding. It's great. I can say that this all definitely fits. One area that I'd like to know more about your perspective on is growing the thick skin, because in my own personal experience, I have seen everything that you've described from coworkers, directors, etc. So, would you care to go down that line of thinking a bit more?
Well, I would say the key there is disassociation. So you have to be able, no, seriously, you have to be able to step back, and go like, all right, like I have to get some perspective on this because it feels really bad. I mean, nobody has ever told me directly that I suck, but I've had that told, in different ways, in very tactful ways, and it still hurts, doesn't matter how tactful it is. But yeah, you have to be able to step back from the situation and go do something else so you can get new perspective on it. But it's tough because most Hagwon situations is small. There's a few core people that you work with every day. So people rub each other the wrong way. There's personalities that get in the way. So I try to not get too involved. So I try to keep my distance. And that gives me a lot of the ability to come back the next day and smile again. But yeah, it's not easy. Definitely not easy.
Yeah, I like what Rhett just said. Smile and nod. Yeah.
Hi, and thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Andre, for laying the platform. I think you ended, or the questions brought us to some critical questions about the actual conditions that teachers have to work under, whether it's in the EPIC program or whether it's with Hagwons. And that's basically what I'll be talking about today. My topic being the EPIC program and Hagwons. How do they in any way actually prepare teachers for the classroom? Do they provide what teachers need practically when it comes to running classes in schools or at Hagwons? And also, how well do they do in helping teachers to feel motivated and competent in doing this job, specifically from the context of teaching in Korea? First, I have to make it or just make it clear that whatever I'll be saying will be coming from mostly based from what I have experienced as a Hagwon teacher and as currently being in the EPIC program. So my lists are not exhaustive. They are just cutting from the top of what are the main issues that I have come across, but also that I have heard other teachers mention whenever there was an opportunity for me to engage with them with regards to teaching in Korea. So I found myself, when I first started this job, my biggest impression of teaching in Korea was, this job is easy. The content is easy. I speak English each and every day. This is going to be a piece of cake. I just need to teach these kids a few words and how to say a simple sentence. And I thought this will be a breeze. And yes, in some respects, it is very easy. And maybe this is one of the things that pushes teachers to feeling like they've reached a ceiling when it comes to their creativity. It's not that exciting. It's not that engaging. So yes, that is true, but the opposite is also true, that the challenges that are present are quite limiting, and they are very they do affect the way that teachers perform and the way that the way that they relate with this job specifically. So when I was finding myself in corners where I was like, I've just been thrown into the deep end here. I've just started at a Hagwon. I was following my director around for a few days. And then, as far as he's concerned, that's enough for me to be in a position to teach. And then he throws me in the deep end and I have to find my feet. Yes, I did find my feet, but that wasn't a comfortable thing to do. And then, even with the EPIC program, where they do try a little bit more, in my experience, to prepare you for the classroom, honestly, what we deal with on a daily basis cannot be covered within a week of training in an orientation. So I did find myself having to say, wait, go back to the drawing board, try to remember why you're here, use your smarts in whatever smarts that you have with your background, and try to make this work. Otherwise, you're going to end up pulling all your hair out. So going back to the drawing board meant that I need to first be clear about what the expectations that I should have here, and also what my employer's expectations are towards me. Also, I needed to be very clear about what I'm competent with and what I need to work on in order for me to be good, or at least be decent at this job. And then I needed to be clear on whether I have the tools and materials that I would be using on a daily basis for me to perform this job. And then also, I had to be very honest with myself about the support that I have and the support that I needed in order for me to do my job well. So when it came to expectations, I needed to be honest with myself and say, I don't know what I'm doing. So I needed a way for me to get the information that I needed. I had to break out of my shell and be someone who is very inquisitive, someone who is looking for answers, and questions were my friend. I needed to get to a place where I was not afraid to even initiate a lot of conversations that I was uncomfortable with. And this would be something that a lot of teachers find ourselves having to do. Ask a lot of questions, start conversations that you don't want to start, even though there's a language barrier. I need to know what you need from me in order for me to perform anything at all. And then also, I learned that it was very important to have some way of confirming or of following up on things that we've discussed because things change very quickly, especially with the hug ones. Things were very rapid, and that's just the nature of academies. This has been better with the EPIC program, which seems to be a lot more stable or a lot more structured in what they do. The changes there, at least in my experience, have not been rapid at all. And then I think a little bit of my law background came in here. I did notice that it was very helpful for me to confirm whatever I had discussed with my co-teachers or with my directors. It needed to be confirmed in writing. In this way, they are able to translate it, make sure that we're on the same page, and then we can move on with as less or with as little miscommunication as possible. What I also needed, or what was also helpful, and what is and must be one of the focuses of any teacher or any Hagwon director or anyone who wants to provide the service with the help of other teachers is there must be a focus on making sure that teachers are competent. A lot of us are obviously smart people because we've obtained degrees in different various fields. But when it comes to education itself, that is a whole spectrum of techniques, methods, strategies, or there's just so much to unpack in education. And the TESOL certificate alone or the TESOL course alone does not do enough to prepare us for the classroom. Yes, it is very helpful, but it does not help me when I am in front of of students and I need to get going. So what I have found from teachers is that they are in desperate need of constantly being trained and being given the tools to be able to work confidently without being led and without being very reliant on other teachers. So development and training is essential. Orientations do a good job, but if it is possible, follow-up training is key, and also updated forms of training, because Korea is a country that is very technologically driven, so they do want to introduce a lot of new things when it comes to teaching. So I would say that it becomes very important then to be updated in the things that are more helpful and more popular or more useful or effective with teaching methods. Also, I've found it to be very important that teachers branch out from what they are taught or what they are given as training in their schools or hagwons, because it is not enough. So being motivated and just knowing that I want to enjoy this job, or I want to be able to feel like I know what I'm doing, it definitely requires us to invest our own personal time into finding out more information about what we're doing. It does not mean that you need to spend money on it. It does just mean you need to put in a bit of effort. There is so much information online now, thankfully. So it really doesn't take much if you want to improve how you're doing things. If you just want to get yourself out of a rut, and if you want to provide your students with a better perspective or more of a variety of learning opportunities, then definitely try to do your best to develop yourself as much as possible. When it comes to skills acquisition, so many teachers are put in front of students and they barely know what it is that they're doing. And I think it's something that has been overlooked for a long time, just because there is this quick turnover of teachers coming into Korea. That's great, but time needs to be put into making sure that teachers know what a lesson plan is. This wasn't very clear to me when I was in a hagwon. I was not put in a position where I needed to know what the objective of each lesson was. And yet now that I know what that is, I see why it is important. I see how it guides me as a teacher, as a map to what I'm doing, and therefore, did I achieve the goals of that lesson? So simple things like that. What is the objective? Is the lesson plan clear enough? Is the material that I'm using even appropriate for a listening lesson or a speaking lesson or a reading lesson or a writing lesson? Or am I just picking whatever that I can find just so that I can fill up 40 minutes of a lesson? So having some sort of an understanding what it is, the skills that students need to grasp, and therefore what tools should I use for them to be able to grasp those skills is pivotal. It is vital. I'm sorry. Also, differentiating. There is a huge, I'm not sure how much Hagwons are affected by this now. I just know that in my experience, when I was in a Hagwon, there was one student who had special, I will call it special education needs, and therefore the parent was very frustrated with the fact that we didn't know how to cater to the student, but she wanted her daughter to be in this Hagwon. And this is now a huge matter or a huge case in public schools where you find yourself having 3 or 4 students with special education needs in a classroom of 30 other students. You only have 40 minutes to teach them all. And I really don't have the materials to cater to this student's specific needs while also dealing with a bunch of kids bouncing off the walls at the same time. So putting in effort has to come from the teacher personally, because EPIC does not do a good job at all of preparing us for that kind of teaching environment that has to cater for students of that nature. So very, very important as well to be able as a teacher to differentiate so that you can reach the needs of all your students as best you can. Also, then we move to output. Now that I have all the information that I need, I've been given the skills that or at least the knowledge that I should have. Now I need to put it into practice. I need to have a classroom routine. A lot of teachers don't know how helpful classroom routines are when it comes to classroom management. Just having simple rules, clear routines, putting mechanisms in place where students know that when I make this gesture, this is what I need. When they need to do this, this is where I need them to go. When I am trying to get their attention, this is what they'll hear. This is what they'll see. It is so helpful to teachers, and it's something that all teachers, especially those that are just getting into this field, need to know and need to make use of, because it's very important. Let me move to the next slide. Then teaching materials and tools. This is a good, I think Korean schools and Hagwons have done a very good job of at least trying to provide as much material as they can for, or at least I should say, different avenues of getting material and different avenues of bringing material to your classes. So things like number 2, ed tech tools, those are very useful, and they have become more and more popular, especially with the EPIC program. A lot of teachers are using these tools to make the classroom or make the lesson less predictable, more entertaining, but while trying to hit the goals of the day. The teaching environment. Let me go back to number 1. I think point 1, 2, and 3 are they're self-explanatory. Number 4 has been one of the biggest issues that teachers have: productive relationships with co-workers, especially in the EPIC field where we are expected to work with co-teachers. The reality is, it doesn't work that way. If co-teachers are in the classroom, they are often on their phones or sitting at the back of the classroom, sleeping, tired, not really engaging. If they are people that are engaging in the classroom, then they often take over, and you don't get much of you don't get to fill in the gaps that you're meant to fill in as the native English speaker, which then leaves the kids in the same position they would have been in had the Korean teacher just had an English class with them. So these frictions happen between between Korean co-teachers and native English teachers, which often leaves native teachers in a very frustrated position. The best way to deal with this is to communicate and try to find a common ground, because the students at the end of the day have to get the best out of the experience or the lesson as possible. I'm going to just gloss over number 3 and number 4, just for the sake of time. Textbooks, we all know, well, most of us know that most of the time the textbooks that we are provided here don't do the best job of helping students learn how to speak in a natural way, or in the way that they would speak should they engage with a native speaker. This is one of the problems that a lot of teachers face. But because it's the textbook, we have to teach it that way. And remembering that my job here is not to come and change the curriculum, because the student will be tested on what is in this textbook, whether I like it or not, is key. I then won't find myself preparing PPTs, trying to change the grammar point or trying to bring up another point that students are not familiar with. This is great, but only if you have time. Trying to stick to the lesson plans provided. EPIC does do a good job of providing the textbook with the lesson plans and other extra materials that can be used by teachers. So textbooks are a contentious point a lot with teachers, just because they're not satisfied with the actual content that we're teaching. But I don't know if it's our job to come here and argue that with our schools or with our directors. If this is the language that they would like us, that they prefer to use, we obviously have an opinion on it, but we cannot crack our heads on it. We cannot let it be the thing that determines whether we're frustrated or not about our jobs. We just have to find a way to make it work. Also, useful extras in the classroom are always helpful to make sure that you don't find yourself in a frustrated position. Use anything that teachers can access in order to control the classroom, using timers, reward systems. It's great. It works. So teachers should be using it. Korean students are very reactive to those things. And also using Korean, I think a lot of people might neglect a little bit the helpfulness of knowing a few Korean terms that are helpful in the classroom. I think they bridge the gap, especially if you are going to find yourself teaching alone. There are certain things that you just need to say so that you can get students' attention, and then we can get the class moving and not waste time on classroom management issues. One more, support. Support is so important, because this is where teachers now, if I'm feeling like I know what I'm doing, I'm competent, I have the skills that I need to lay out this lesson, I can hit the objectives, and I know that at the end of the lesson, my students will have grasped this specific goal, then after the lesson, I also need to feel like the working environment is one that is conducive for me, so that I'm able to foster good relationships, as Andre mentioned. So important. It really does affect how we feel in the classroom and how we perform when we have good working and relationships with our peers, and when the environment is one that encourages me to be happy and to enjoy what I'm doing, and to at least be in a place mentally where I am here, I'm availing myself, and I know what I am doing. So being motivated is something that can only be achieved when not just your competence is key, has been attained, but when your work environment is one that is good. It's when your peer relationships with your coworkers are good. It's when things like housing and your social life are all set in place, so that you have a good quality of life. Because that's one thing we all want while we're here, just a good quality of life. More than just the money, most of us actually value a good quality of life over money, which is why, to be honest, some of us are still in Korea, even though other options are available in other countries, because the money might be great elsewhere, but the quality of life is not always that great in other countries. So yes, I would say that these are the most important things that teachers have brought up that would be helpful for them to be good at what they do, and to at least enjoy it to an extent where students are getting the best out of them. Thank you.
Good job. I liked it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Do we
Andy.
have any questions?
Oh.
Hi, Courtney.
There we go. I love this talk. I'm currently finishing my last contract with Epic, so this has all been very relevant. I was wondering, first, what grades are you teaching, and how often have you had your co-teacher in the classroom?
Okay, so I've got 3 schools at the moment, and ever since I've started with Epic, which was in 2022, I've had 3 schools. I had 3 schools in my previous contract and in this one. So my youngest grades is grade 3, and then grade 4, 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade. So I'm an elementary school teacher, and all 3 schools have different ways of working with me. My main school, I have a handler and a co-teacher. I know that he's meant to be in my classroom, but sometimes it feels as though they come in on the first day, and once they see that, okay, it looks like she's okay, they leave and they never come back, which is good. But to be honest, in my opinion, I think my students would gain a lot more if both of us were there, especially if we could have a bit of a rapport where we do a bit of role play together, or some exercises that require me to say something and he responds. I think it would be helpful. My other 2 schools, on the other hand, the homeroom teachers are there, but they are not people that are very confident in English. So I find them to be very shy, and they sit back and not really engage during my classrooms. So yes, those are the 2 kind of relationships that I have with my co-teachers at the moment.
Oh, that's very interesting. I had the pleasure of experiencing the Epic Plus program workshop that
Okay.
he puts on, and they had an elementary school Korean teacher come in
Yeah.
and explain how the classroom is supposed to be structured.
Right.
And the Korean co-teacher and English teacher are supposed to plan every lesson together.
Yes.
And I'm seeing
Teach it
all of
together as well.
everything was together, and I'm seeing all of the Epic Plus teachers just nodding like, ah, yes, this makes sense. And I'm sitting here like, I haven't had a teacher in the classroom in 3 years.
The reality is that that's not what happens. That's my frustration with Epic. I feel like they're not very upfront with the reality. Fine, if this is the truth and teachers are not, or maybe Korean teachers are busy, because we do know that. We know that Korean teachers or co-teachers are very busy, and therefore they don't have the time to always be with us or in the classroom with us. But if they are meant to be doing those lessons with us, then I think we should have been told that the reality is they won't always be there. Then we would have prepared ourselves for that, because oftentimes it's because we're not prepared that we're so surprised by it, and it will get overwhelmed by it too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Greg. Okay. Rhett.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I thought it was quite informative. I kind of want to go back to where you started with the development and training.
Yes.
And you made a point that I think you made the point that it really needs to be regular and updated.
Yes.
And I couldn't agree more. And consistent, I guess I would add to that.
Yes.
But I just wonder, and it kind of dovetails with the teacher training and that sort of the transparency of the real situation, because it seems like, yes, everybody wants to have regular, updated, consistent training and development, but when would that happen? Because I don't believe that there is a window or space for that to happen given the workload that you have. Is that true?
Right. Yes, this is another thing that I've found to be very, maybe let me not say inconsistent, but varying with different provinces. I know that in this province that I'm in now, they meet us at least twice a year to have some sort of a workshop with us where a specific topic is brought up, and then we are able to be developed in that specific topic. But then I have friends who say, oh, you guys are lucky. We haven't had any type of training at all since orientation 3 years ago. So I guess different offices of education with respect to EPIC make different efforts when it comes to this. I think that any type of training would be fine. Frequent can be subjective to each province, but I think at least once a semester would be better than sending teachers out to schools and then leaving them there for 3 to 4 years without ever making sure that they have developed in any way or having any type of feedback as to whether things are going well. Are you hitting the marks that should be hit by a teacher? Are you doing well at what you're doing? Are the students getting the best out of the experience more than just, okay, I know that there is an evaluation for each EPIC teacher each year. I think that is good, but I don't know that it's enough for someone to say, oh no, we still like her. We'd like her to stay for another year, more than saying our students are doing better. We've seen the marks getting better, the points get or the grades getting better. We think she does this very well. We think she would benefit from this type of training. I think students would benefit much more from that.
Right. I would agree. Thank you.
Yes, Rhett. We can't hear you.
Yeah, that's me. People always try to censor me. They're always muting me. Oh, sorry, this is being recorded. I don't really have a question, but I would like to say I really like how you said back to the drawing board, because whenever you step into something new and you don't really, and everything's really uncertain, then you bring that drawing board back and you start writing notes, you start drawing pictures, you start to really think about how things are actually going versus what it's supposed to be, because the is and ought are very different, and to bridge those gaps requires that imagination and the intuition that the drawing board will bring forth. So thank you for mentioning that. I really liked it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brett. Yes, Palesa.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Andy, for a lovely presentation. I just have a quick question. So you mentioned, the book or the textbook and, how to use it effectively and how, sometimes these textbooks just don't do what they need to do. So my question is basically, how do you find the balance between using this ineffective book and effective teaching? Because, I have a co-teacher, like you guys were talking about how co-teachers are there, but they're not really there, so she's like, I call her the ghost, she's just hovering. So she always emphasizes the need for me to stick to the textbook. However, whenever it's towards the end of the semester and we have speaking tests, it's a bit of a problem because the kids still can't do what they need to do. So then we find that a lot of the students will either fail the speaking test or they just don't want to participate in the speaking test because it's, they don't feel comfortable with speaking the language. So this previous semester, I tried to do something different where I would spend a bit more time on each lesson and incorporate more games that allow the students to get more practice. But then there's the issue of time, because it's a middle school. So the students have to study other things. We don't have time, so just stick to the textbook. If you do the textbook, you're done within a matter of days. But this microwave teaching is definitely not working for anybody. It's not working for me as the teacher because it's like, well, I'm basically just collecting my money just to show face. I'm not doing anything effective. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do because I'm just going through the textbook quick and fast and then moving on. And my students are not getting what they need to do. They're not learning anything.
Right.
The only ones that are getting something are the ones that, can afford to go to Hogwarts and stuff like that.
Yes.
But then for the rest of them, which is the majority, what happens to them?
Yeah.
I had to Papago just recently with one of them, and she's like, just give me a 0, teacher. It's fine. I don't mind. Just give me a 0 for the speaking test. And she genuinely just doesn't feel comfortable. And in as much as we can play the games, this textbook that they just keep shoving down everyone's throat is, it's a nightmare. So how do you find a balance between the textbook and effective teaching?
Unfortunately, we have to be very realistic about our situation. Our situation is, this is the textbook, this is the curriculum that is being used, that is recommended by the school, and therefore that is being followed by the school. So you cannot branch out of it, and therefore, no matter how frustrating it is or how much it doesn't meet your students' needs, you're going to have to focus on it and find ways to teach it to your students in a way that will help them retain the information. Because if they are being tested on this material, then it is paramount that they grasp it some way or the other. It's also a very important point that one of our very esteemed speakers brought up at our initial meeting, that teachers knowing what students will be tested on can be very helpful to students, because then this narrows down what the teacher needs to focus on, so that he or she can at least prepare students for this, for them to be tested on this. So if you can find ways, I know that it's not easy. It's one thing for me to sit here and say it, and then in reality to actually try to achieve this with 30 or 20 students at the same time. It's not easy. And that's just the reality of it. We don't have the time, we don't have the material, we don't have the flexibility of changing the material. So use what you have with the help of your co-teacher to use methods in the classroom that repeat, that drill as much as possible. In that way, students can try to retain as much as they can. Unfortunately, one of the ways that works for Korean students, a method that they use is memorizing. I know that this is not a very good, it's not a very effective way of teaching, of learning or retaining information, especially if you're learning a language, because it makes a sentence linear. It makes it one thing in your mind if you're going to memorize it. But if that's how they get to retain the information for the purposes of tests, then that's what you have to do. That's the best you can do.
Thank you, Andy. I'll definitely.
I'm sorry.
I'll talk to Courtney.
Think that...
Courtney, thank you for the message.
Yes. Also, Palesa, this is why it's so important for us to keep speaking to each other, because in mediums like this, you find other teachers who say, you know what, I've tried this. It works great for my students. Why don't you try it? Hey, I've done this. I use this program. It helps my students a lot with this. Why don't you try it? So speaking out and sharing information with other teachers and asking questions is always great, because you find someone who will give you something that will work.
Okay, well, since it's a couple of minutes past time, and if it had not been for the technical difficulties, we would likely already be finished with this workshop. So thank you, everybody, for your patience. But I'm glad we've been able to spend a bit of extra time and have some very fruitful discussion, and hopefully that can continue as we go into our third presentation, presented by Park ShinYeop Park, however you'd like your name said, the gap between the expectation and reality of English education from the perspective of a former student turned teacher. So everybody, please welcome Mr. Park to the floor.
Hi guys, my name is ShinYeop Park. I go by Yup. When I was in Spain, when I was in international school, that's the name I went by. I come from a background of I was born and raised in Seoul until middle school, and I went to one of the most hard-starting town in Seoul, which is called Mokdong, if you ever heard it. Um, After that, I went to Spain for international school there, and that's where I actually picked up English, like speaking and writing. So my view on English education is it's not completely full Korean education, but I do have talked with my friends for this, and with I also teach elementary school kids, so I also got some their views from them. So today I want to talk about the gap between the expectation and reality of English education. So while I was preparing for this, I thought of where to start, and I wanted to first start off with looking into the policy of current education. This is a report from KDI, KDI standing for Korea Development Institute, and their main focus are these two things: enhancing students' English communication skills, which is not particularly being going well, but the second is reducing disparities in English proficiency. This one I want to emphasize in Korea, English education, uh, it's very controversial, um, regardless of the fact that we all need to study English, but um, the fact that we have to spend too much money on English education, people who coming from like lower classes, uh, we have a conflict on this matter. So that's why it's very hard to kind of come to an agreement on one policy over another. Like when we tried to expand on this English communication skills, it was very difficult because uh, first of all, yes, we can hire more foreign native speakers, teachers to uh, improve this English communication classes. But at the same time, if we actually make a test on this one particularly, then uh, all these other students who come from like wealthy family, they will have like private education, and this will boost the competition. And because of that, it's very hard to uh, say like let's really uh, go for like let's do perfect English education, and then if we make one, and it's very hard to spread it to all the others because there's always like a disparity in economic levels of the students. So uh, as a Korean student who was a Korean student, I think teachers sometimes forget about this part. This is really important. Education itself is important, but the policy making is very difficult for that reason. And if the policy is the input of the education, I think output comes from the test. And so it's very important to know what do schools test on about. And yes, we do have speaking, we do have listening, but mainly it's about reading, vocab, grammar, and writing. And writing, it wasn't even in the test, but it got included for some schools, and now it's a bit more commonized by many schools. But it's mostly reading, vocab, grammar, and I want to show you guys each one question uh, in regard this matter. So this is a reading question. Um, the reason I don't want you to guys to like actually solve this, but I just want you guys to get an idea of what they're being tested on. I think this is important because as Andy mentioned, we have to know what students are being tested on. But I got to know that many foreign teachers are not having access to what Koreans are actually being tested on, or like their like current tests. So uh, if we have an idea, if we get an idea of what is being tested on, I think uh, you guys can get an idea as well, and also kind of navigate your lectures or classes uh, similar to this, because students, when they are very, very inclined to test grades, right? And if you guys do a class that is uh, kind of like helping them in a way that it would uh, get them a better grades, then they'll really focus on the class, and that would also make you guys more feel motivated and to go on more. And this is the grammar test, and the the questions I'm showing you guys, these are grade 10 level uh, for first year in high school level. So I think uh, for average Korean students, this is considered difficult. I hope you guys understand that. For them, it's very difficult questions. And this is the vocabulary test. And I will also show you guys the writing test. This one, I have to talk about something. This is written in Korean, and so what I want to talk about is when when doing a class, I think this is going to relate to the later bit of my presentation. I think it's important for foreign teachers to also know a bit of Korean. It's not like I'm not saying like we need like Korean certificate, not that level, but I'm just saying at least we should be able to read the question written in Korean, just that bit at least. I think that would be really helpful because uh, I'm gonna explain it later, but uh, I think it's important. Okay, so when I was in Spain, when I was actually picking up English, I got to know the difference between like the perspective from the, native speakers who learn English and for Koreans who learn English. Mother tongue, for them, it's acquisition. For Koreans, it's learning and practicing. And I got to know that in Korea, um, we only focus on learning. We don't practice. So that has been a trend. Not trend, like it's just it's been a system already, just learning English. And what I want to say now is that mm, the trend is emerging. Like we are slightly including practicing, but this is very initial state of including that part. So that's why there's gonna be so many problems and so many like corrections need to be made to get to like really good English education. And maybe that's why for teachers here, it was very hard to come up with a class proposal because it's never been done. It's a very new idea. So when when like doing this speaking class, I hope you guys not to be so much worried about it because this is very, very initial. No one's have ever expected this to happen. No one's ever like tried this. Maybe in very like uh, very good schools, very like very academic driven schools, they might try that, but this is definitely is trending. So shoving like textbook into students' throats, I heard that expression and I agree, but I don't think we should be aiming for like perfection. It's really okay to be just giving them what's written in textbook because I got to know if we are like picking up English in the native like countries like the US, then I wouldn't say that's a good method. But this is Korea and this is for Koreans, they are already the Korean language is already set up in their brain, and it's very hard to just naturally pick up um, or learn from like this very creative environment. Maybe Korean might come, maybe Korean they might pick it up in that way, but in English, I don't think that's um, possible. And if you look into Korean language itself, it's very different from English. So um, to start learning English, I think we should go for a very not fun way. Only then it would be understandable for current students. You have to kind of like make it very maybe robotic or maybe very easy. But only then I think students can uh, learn and gain confidence. And as we um, as we carry on this speaking classes, as we carry on with this uh, new kind of school program, I think every year we're gonna see improvement. So this is stage one. So I don't think anyone should be focusing on like what's the best way to come out right now. I think it's better uh, we try to understand Korean students who just only know Korean. It's it's not their first language, and also English is so different from Korean. So yeah, I hope teachers do not stress about perfect class. This is not what we can do right now, but we will definitely get improved every year. So this I was not so sure about if I should show this or not, but later on after this discussion, if you guys join the group chat, I can show you guys the workbooks in the market that only has like the questions uh, given to students in schools. There's a collection of the questions, and they made a book out of it. And there are lots of books like this, and I think it would be really helpful for the teachers to 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 first like make a class, and also I think it would be helpful for you guys to know what exactly Koreans are going through, and then that will help the second factor here, teach test-oriented skills. This already is done by current teachers, but I think as we move on with the speaking-oriented classes, I think there should be a need of speaking instructor, and that one I think will come in handy. And for the third one, I hope this is possible. I hope to I hope you guys to try to um, talk through with current teachers more. Try to understand their perspective as well as yours. Um, it's uh, I'm not sure if we have this expression in English, but it's in Korean. Um, you have to, uh, having a blind people and make them tell what is elephant like, and they can only like touch it, and they can only talk about the parts they touched. But elephants have, you know, some part is like just long nose, some part is just thick, big chunk of legs. It's all different, right? So I hope the teachers, for foreign teachers, to grasp uh, um, the current culture, the Korean students' culture, not just like Korean class environment, but also just Korean culture. That will definitely help uh, managing your classes. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ShinYeop.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Uh,
Courtney has a question. Oh, and Wesley too.
Very informative, very interesting. It's always nice to hear more of the Korean teacher side of things. I had the joy of seeing my managers, my handlers, my babysitters uh manual, the epic English teacher manual. It was this big. She hasn't read it. It was her second time doing the whole epic teacher babysitting, and I don't blame her for not reading it. My question
yeah.
is, because I'm in a middle school, I often edit all of the tests that the teachers write for the midterm and final exams.
Mhm.
And the questions that the teacher ends up asking me after the test is done is how to grade the writing section when they have to use all these specific words and they have to use all the specific grammar and the sentence has to be this one specific sentence. So many of my students, it's an academic school, the sentences they're writing are correct, but they don't follow the rules of the question. Like, how do you manage that? How do you grade something like that?
So there is a workbook that only has this written questions, and this was not something that when I was in middle school. So this is very new, and I don't think anyone would have a strict rule for that because this questions uh, I I looked at some questions thoroughly, and it is very confusing. It is very limiting the students' creative part. So, and when graded, and the students come ask for like, what's the standard, like what's the criteria, I would not expect Korean teachers to be explaining very nicely that the students would understand, just because how questions are formed, because it's already formed in unmanageable way. It is hard for teachers to have an answer because it doesn't already wasn't considering a logic in that, because no like English native speakers would write like in that manner. And if the native speaker wouldn't like write like that, then we're just doing something very just nonsense, right? So I would just say what to tell them back is I would first ask the teachers to make questions looking at other schools' tests first. Just if you have more data to make a question out of from, then it would be at least logical. It wouldn't be a nice question, but it would have less like arguments about it. I think in schools nowadays, it's really more about not having argument rather than giving more, education, right? And this is not just any school, this is everywhere. Even the current teachers are saying, like, I'm not teaching. It's more about like uh maybe managing their behavior. So it's already kind of taken out of control. So right now it's a time where we want a question that is not going to bring too much argument. And that I think would be helpful if you look into some of the workbooks I might recommend if you ask me later. If you have the set of questions to look into, it will definitely help you form how to make a written question that is more logical. Yeah, but it's not a good question. So yeah,
I feel much better about that. The Korean teachers always send the kids to me, and I don't have an answer, so I send them back to the Korean teacher, and then we just go back and forth with the kids.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Wesley?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I like what you said about doing things in a not so fun robotic way. Just to maybe give a little preview of my presentation coming up next, I'm a big fan of the work of an ELT scholar by the name of Paul Nation. And I got his book recently here, this big 600, 500 something page volume on teaching vocabulary. And he recommends, actually, somewhere in these thousands of words, that learners first deliberately learn the first most common 2,000 to 3,000 word families of their target language, because that kind of gives them the content that they need. So this is well supported in ELT research, actually. This notion of you, and as Rhett said in the chat too, deliberate learning. It can't be all fun and games at the beginning. They have to memorize, they have to drill a little bit, but once they get a hold of the basic building blocks, then things can really start to take off. So I thought that was a great insight, and I just wanted to let you know it's well supported. So thank you for that.
Okay. Andy?
Yes, very good job. Very good job, ShinYeop. I think you have once again brought up another thing that is very that is very real in teaching, whether it's at Hagwon level or in the EPIC program. That I know that with EPIC teachers, we are told that we are not involved in the assessment part of students. We're not expected to assess students. But then in reality, we are asked by students to help them with certain questions. Teachers come up to us and ask us to create a rubric for assessing questions. And then you think, I was not prepared for this. Nobody trained me to do this. How do I come up with a rubric to test a curriculum that I am not allowed to analyze, or a curriculum that I am not allowed to critique? So really, it comes down again to exactly what you said. Teachers have to take it out of their minds that we are here to teach English in the way that we speak it. We are here to teach English in the way that it is prescribed in the textbooks. And when we add our own material on top of it, sometimes that is adding more onto what students think will be helpful. But at the end of the day, it is not. So even with what Courtney said, it means that teachers actually need to be intentional about finding out how this question was answered previously. Not in a way that I think is correct, because all three of these options look correct to me as an English speaker. But what is the prescribed answer that is required by the examiners or whoever will be grading these papers? So we actually need to only teach what is required. If we can just get that in our minds as teachers, I think that half the battle will be won, even if we don't think it's the correct type of English or it's not fun, but that's what students need.
I got two thoughts
Mm.
listening to you. First one is, as I mentioned earlier, this uh, English education in Korea was introduced 1980s. It's not even that old. So we are trying to get a hang of it every year. And as I said in the very first beginning of this presentation, it's very difficult because of the policy making, because of disparity in this country, and people are all for uh, being equal about it. It it doesn't allow uh, things to be fixed and just remain as a problem. So, but I am noticing like they're trying to introduce AI. They're still doing something about it. So this is definitely improving. So I hope uh, with a lot of patience that will be required, but it will get better, first of all. But you have to kind of hang on it while we are getting improved. Um, and in the meantime, it's gonna feel very like maybe the teachers will feel like they're just part of this school factory, but it will get improved. And I am seeing that because of just the quality of the tests. It um not just because it's harder, but it is actually getting better. I can see that. And also elementary school students, they actually speak way much better than I did when I was their age. So I am seeing the improvement for sure. And the second thought was that even the the top university, Seoul National University in this country, the English professors there, Koreans, they they are asked to grade the test and they can't even come up with a criteria. They also confirmed that these English tests are so grammar savvy, like just one bit off, or if you consider this part of English, like let's say like the US way of English and the UK way of English, or any like just if you're off a small bit, it's incorrect. So um coming up with a criteria like the right, very right criteria, it it is impossible for even Korean professors of the top universities. They can't. So if you ever hear someone saying like, "This is my criteria," that is just their criteria, and I think teachers should be acknowledging that it's not about right or wrong. It's just about if it's your criteria or not. That's just the reality of Korean education. Yeah. Even the Korean language itself is done like that. So yeah, when it comes to English, it could be worse. Yeah.
David, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Oh, thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. Um, you seem to touch upon something that is of very much interest to me in the sense that the educational focus um, that the public education system seems to be transforming, as you mentioned, and that I think you used the term learn versus acquisition, and that I would say it's more like content-based learning, vocabulary, grammar. That's the term I think you used for learn, into more of an acquisition, more skill-based, for example, speaking. I would lump in writing with that too, but you're saying it's transforming and it's changing, And you seem to suggest it's much more of an improvement in terms of language learning. So I agree with you there. It seems to be you need much more skill-based acquisition of language because it is more practical and useful when the students graduate and get out into the real world. So I'm curious, do you think that transformation is occurring, and how is that happening? In the sense of, because you need a teacher base to teach that and to be able to instruct the students in that form. So if you want to teach them speaking, hopefully they get to practice speaking. So in Korea, you don't have that large teacher base in order for them to practice, if you will. So you hinted at it just a moment ago in the sense that the incorporation of AI into the teaching tools that are probably be included or integrated into the system. And so I'm kind of curious, how much of that, the AI, do you think will be incorporated into the tools that teachers will have at their disposal? Because I'm very much curious because I myself too am trying to integrate AI into my teaching. And ever since about a year ago, when I learned about how AI was the development of AI, I'm trying to see what kind of capabilities AI had in terms of how it can be used in the classroom. And from what I've seen from a year ago to what I see now, because I've been intensely looking at AI in the last month and seeing what capabilities that are available that I could incorporate into my teaching. It's quite a leap. I've found it almost amazing that the amount of development, progression that AI has gone into has I'm just amazed. And then in my research and looking through this, I saw a YouTube video that entitled, what was it? GPT-5 just made teaching obsolete. What you must do now. And I thought that was quite an interesting title because it involved me.
I got,
And,
okay, if I can do this right, I got four things to say. First, you asked me, is the transformation necessarily an improvement? And I want to say, when I was saying for for s- someone who's learning English as their second language, it's learning plus practice, right? And we've been only focusing on learning part, and my definition of transformation was going into practice part more. And for that reason, I think if I'm correct about language acquisition, right, I think this is definitely improvement because Korean students, it's not about them, like it's not that they can't speak English. It's not just about that because when I was finishing my middle school and then going to Spain, it only took a year for me to become not almost, but like half of this level right now I'm in. It wasn't taking that much long because I already had this grammar basics and vocab basics. So it's not that this education is not working. It's just we need practice more. And we haven't really um, put a lot of attention to it, but now we are doing it. That's my view on it. So it is improving. So if we can do that correctly, it will definitely serve the policy's aim right. So that was my first thought. And secondly, what AI what is government policy has to do with AI. And that part, I looked into not Gyeonggi chapter, Gyeonggi-do MEO, but I looked into Seoul. So I'm not sure about Gyeonggi, but I looked into Seoul one, and for last year, as of last year, they introduced AI by collaborating with AI edu tech company. So uh, I haven't looked into what specifically that company does, but um, I got to look into some other like AI learning tools, and it's not there quite yet. It's not. So um, GPT-5, as you mentioned, that that is very powerful, but the government contracted AI is not there at all. So because what they can offer is very basic, and GPT is like nation level developers all working together, but this um, Korean AI learning tool is not that level. So for school teachers, they're not gonna run out of job for sure. That's not happening. And my last thought is AI for now it's not gonna be helpful as much as we expect it to be for speaking. Uh, it's it it's the reason I think is because it's because of their humans. Um, we can learn it from AI. We can learn English from AI, definitely, but these are kids. Kids have to be not only just learning from teachers, but they learn to be humans, right? So AI, it can help for adult English speakers, but they're not in public schools anymore. So I don't think that um, this is very entry level. This is very like we're at stage one. So um, we are in like laboratory. We don't we're trying to build, but we're just at the beginning. So at right now we can't expect a lot from it. That's my view.
Oh, I'd like, well, I would disagree with you about the fact that AI may not necessarily be at a stage where it can be used in the classroom, especially with children. I would disagree with you that in the sense that I don't know how many of you have actually tried to use AI daily in terms of like I've been using Google Gemini, and just about a year ago, maybe even 6 months ago, it was very artificial. There were lots of errors. It was sometimes glitchy. But recently, I've been using Google Gemini in terms of interactions in my daily inquiries. For example, like just common things like making inquiries about time and, about recipes and things like that. And I was amazed at how human-like it was, the interaction it was. And um, my next step in this particular exploration myself is to try to incorporate this into my classroom in the sense that I use it. I'm a native English speaker, so it's very natural for me in terms of the interactions I have with Gemini, and it does seem very natural, very fluid, if you will. Um, would that be the case with non-native English speakers? And I like again, you might be thinking, well, what about the different proficiency levels that might affect the interactions that Google Gemini might have with individuals? You could instruct Google Gemini to interact with you at a particular English proficiency level, and it will do that. And you can instruct Gemini to speak in a particular tone and with a particular persona. For example, you might say, well, pretend you're a teacher, or pretend you're a friend, pretend you're this. And Google Gemini will mimic that persona. And I was, again, astonished as to how accurately it reproduced that persona. And so I'm is this I uploaded in the chat this YouTube. I don't know if it's there, but the YouTube link as to this person talking about it. And when I heard what he was saying, I was in complete agreement with what he was saying. Was that teachers we're we were so focused on content. I spent a lot of time on producing content for my classes. And it seems like AI is just doing that for us. Like, well, it used to take hours for me. I would just instruct Google Gemini and it would produce it in minutes. And with all of the test questions, with all of the, like I use Quizlet. And I would ask it to produce vocabulary and definitions and all that, and produce it in a form where I can just input it right into Quizlet, and it would produce 20 items for a study set, and it would do that. And I use Kahoot too, and I would say, well, hey, produce all of these questions for me, and it would do that, and it would translate in Korean too. And so what I did with one particular prompt, it would produce like 12 weeks of lesson planning with test content, with quiz content, with examples. And I think it's gotten to the point where I haven't experimented with this yet, but if I asked it to produce, for example, audio content, for example, a listening course, I think it could do that. I think it's at that level. And if it's not now, it will be months. And so I'm amazed as to how developed AI has gotten to this point. So I'm kind of curious, like, can
Yeah.
it will be
Two
written?
two things.
And
I'll be really brief about this. Uh, First of all, I'm not I agree with you on Gemini and ChatGPT, but for public schools, I don't maybe for their like classroom proposals, they might use it, they can use it. But in the classroom, I think if they have a contract with a certain AI tech edutech company, then they should be only be allowed to use that, not ChatGPT or Gemini, which I think is less developed in any matter of ChatGPT and Gemini. If they allow ChatGPT and Gemini to be used in classroom, I think then it'll be a really good tool. But still, that doesn't mean teachers, uh, it will be just a good tool because for public school system, they need a tester and they need someone to grade. And maybe if AI, if they replace like even the grading jobs, maybe then um, the teaching jobs might be obsolete. But for now, they're not discussing about are we gonna allow AI to grade the tests. It's just about what tool are we going to use for the test? What tool are we going to use for classroom? And for that, it's AI. And if we allow Google Gemini, then maybe. But this is also Korean classrooms. So right now, I don't think it would be just replacing all the jobs teachers are doing right now. That's my view. Not that Gemini and ChatGPT aren't very effective tool.
Okay. So yeah, this is meant to be a preview of a workshop that I've been working on, as I already said. So yeah, you already, I suppose, have had an introduction for me. But yeah, I'm currently the second vice president on the KOTESOL National Council. I'm currently teaching in Hagwon. I like teaching and learning vocabulary in the second languages that I have learned, like Spanish, Korean, Mandarin, French. I've tried to do a lot, but only Spanish is really stuck, and Korean out of necessity. I have a master's in theoretical linguistics with a TESOL focus area and a bachelor's in more of an applied linguistics background. So why did I create this workshop? Well, basically, I've been in this game for a long time, and I have seen that there is a lack of quality training for many Hagwon teachers that I have worked with or have interacted with over the years. And I have a coworker, a great coworker. He manages his classroom incredibly well, but he came up to me and he asked me one day, what's the difference between the subject and the predicate? And I'm just like, seriously. So Hagwon teachers seem to feel that they don't really have a lot of knowledge on even the basics of English grammar that they might actually have to teach in their books. And that's because of just the fact that people kind of, as was mentioned by somebody earlier, they feel like they're just come in and paid to talk. So yeah, the point of this presentation is to connect linguistic theory and research on language learning with this Hagwon environment in a way that teachers can actually use it. So it's a unique experience to go teach in a Hagwon, though, I must say. But there seems to be one common element, and we've already talked about it. And I'm glad to know that this trouble with the book exists for public school teachers as well. It's not just us, but a veteran Hagwon teacher of 20 plus years in Korea basically said that his training consisted of, here's a book, go teach it. And the training that I got when I was fresh off the boat was, here are your books, whatever you do, just finish them on time. And that was basically all of my training. And yeah, basically the line from management that I get all the time is make sure you don't miss any pages, mark them all, don't make any mistakes. Okay. So we have no agency about curriculum most of the time. And we're just as crammed as the students are, so to speak. Everybody knows this is a high pressure environment. And we have to deliver somebody else's material, somebody else's curriculum. But we do have agency in how we choose to deliver the courses and how we choose to deliver the content. As Andisiwe pointed out, we just have to find a way to deliver it that works, even if we don't have a lot of control over the content itself and what we are actually delivering. So we can kind of compare the materials that the Hagwon give us and choose which practices might fit best. So the focus of the potential workshop or workshops deal in main 4 areas, which I'm just going to really quickly talk about. One of them is phonics and phonology, so how to better teach sound-based reading, phonics, which is something that I've run into a lot, and pronunciation. Another one is syntax and grammar. How can you better teach grammar to address learners' progress using data from real linguistic research? Educational linguistics. How do you ensure a balanced language course and address these asymmetries that people keep pointing out and have pointed out throughout the course of the day? And effective factors in motivation. How do you motivate learners who are in a high pressure environment, in an extremely competitive environment that they may not even want to be in themselves? So phonics and phonology. So in theoretical linguistics, it is proposed that every syllable you say in a string is composed primarily of a nucleus, which is the smallest unit of sound that you can make in any language. I mean, think of like in Korean, the surname Lee, Lee. Well, that would be a single vowel utterance, which is a meaningful unit of speech composed of a single vowel. Or in French, for water. I'm sorry, for water. Yeah, that's also just a nucleus. But then it gets merged with in English anyway. This is not the case for all languages. It gets merged with coda consonants to make a subunit called a rhyme, which then merges with an onset consonant, the first consonant in the string, to make the whole syllable. How is this relevant? Well, the answer may surprise you because it appears to me that many materials that we are told to use actually follow this. And I'm not sure this is the best way to go about teaching this, but we have to use the material. How do you deliver it? Come watch the workshop. Syntax and grammar. Why is it important to know the order in which learners will acquire grammar versus how we're going to teach them to learn it, if we're going to indeed use this acquisition versus learning distinction that ShinYeop brought up in his previous presentation? There is a sequence that has been seen across learners of pretty much all linguistic backgrounds. This is, I don't want to say universal because in linguistics, that's a very strong term, which is very, very controversial. But it seems to follow across linguistic backgrounds for second language speakers of English. And if you're learning English as a first language, which you could argue that many young learners would be doing here in Korea, especially in English kindergartens, there is an order in which they acquire verbal morphology, they develop negatives, they develop WH questions. And how is this relevant to the Hagwon classroom? Well, the answer may surprise you. You want to find out? Come watch the workshop. Insights from educational linguistics. So what kinds of asymmetries exist? And I think we have kind of already talked about it. There's a lot of input. There's a lot of focus on the grammar and metalinguistic skills, but there's no output and there's no fluency development, which are two of the strands that Paul Nation brings up in his kind of his own special model, which he calls the 4 strands model, which advocates for a balanced approach to language instruction. And even if you can't make a curriculum based off of that, how can you use your time in the classroom using activities that connect to these 4 strands to address these asymmetries in language instruction? You want to find out more about that? Come watch the workshop. And finally, motivation and effective factors. So what does the motivation of learners in the Hagwon environment look like? It seems that there is a lot of pressure these learners are under, and they get it from all sides. And so they may not have, in fact, the internal motivation versus the external motivation to learn English. And so we can address this, I think, by looking at the work of one of the most prominent scholars in the area of language teaching motivation, Zoltan Dernier, who proposed this model of how learner motivations can look. And so how can we bolster our students' skills using this, and how can we create a better learning experience? Want to find out? Come watch the workshop. So here's my works cited for this, and I have some guiding questions for group discussion, but we've been doing a lot of talking already, and I think we already have our own questions and ideas and thoughts about this. So I'm going to stop the screen share, if I can do it without my Zoom crashing on me. Patience. It appears things are acting up again.
Well, at least you're still there.
Oh, I'm still there? Okay, I was about to ask you if I'm still visible because my whole screen is frozen and I can't see. Okay.
We can see you.
Okay, well, good. So I'll just keep going as it is. So really quickly, what questions do you have for me? Or do you have anything you'd like to discuss really quickly before I ask for your votes?
I don't really have any questions, but I can tell you from experience that any one of those things, you can go really deep into it, and you can spend a whole lifetime developing a process of understanding it. And you just need to choose what you're interested in. So.
Right. And that's why I thought I was going to ask for, would you like to see a single workshop or a series of workshops where I address all four of them or any mix of the 4, just, get an initial feel of for what you'd like me to develop and what the group thinks is relevant. So yeah, it's a lot of ground to cover. And this is essentially kind of like the best of what I saw in the course of my master's degree. And all of these things are so deep. So you're right. Thank you, Rhett, for your comment.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Greg.
Wesley? So do you want to, well, it seems like you want to, impart the knowledge that you've gained from your education to teachers, as broadly as you can, help them out as much as you can. Is that correct?
Oh, Greg, Wesley just fell off. Hang on, hang on. I
Is
think
that what he wants to do?
he wants to fall off. Yeah, hang on. Let me just
Oh,
send him a message.
well, I'll keep talking while you're trying to find
Sure,
it.
sure.
Because I'm just wondering about the points that people raised in the chat. There were some really good ones, and there were some things there that people said, "Oh, we should talk about that, or we should have a training on that." And I just wonder whether he is open to derailing what his plan, which he's obviously put a lot of work into, whether he would sort of allow the group to determine what the topics are. I guess that's, dare I say, because I think he's done a tremendous amount of work already, and I hate to, or maybe a combination.
Yeah,
I think
I think he should choose what he's very interested in and work at that, because that will progress for him in his future in this field, instead of like doing a little bit for everybody. And I put up some Korean expressions in there because sometimes, like, it's not rice and it's not juke. It's a whole bunch of nothing. And one of my concerns is that if we do 1% here and there, if everybody's doing 1% here and there, then we really have no meal to eat. But if somebody keeps delving into their own interest, then they'll get a better grasp of it. And
well, that's exactly what I'm saying, is that we should be delving into what people, or we should try to delve into what people are actually interested in. That's exactly what I'm going at.
Okay, hang on, Wesley. It's going to be back in a second.
We should all leave.
But I think that kind of answers the question that Wesley had. He was wondering if there should be a series of workshops or just one focus. Wesley, I think Greg, the question that Greg posed is actually towards what you were asking as well. Like, should there be one focus, or should there be parallel workshops running on different subjects?
In the initial manual that I wrote up, I had different workshops for different areas. And I think actually this kind of is a little bit like, one is for teaching listening and speaking, because it's connected to the idea of phonology or reading, as well with the phonics. I guess I didn't envision exactly that they would be structured in this way. But yeah, I think it kind of is inching in that direction of like, this is how I wrote it up in the initial manual for the GKT. So, but if you think that this is just way too dense and you don't want to hear me talk about this for like 4 hours, then yeah, I mean, by all means.
I'm not interested in listening to you talk about it for 4 hours.
Not consecutive hours, Rhett. 4 hour-long workshops.
I'm interested. Okay. But I'm interested in how I took what you created with all those little teaching, reading, writing, listening, speaking, all those skills, and then in the Discord server there are places for people to create their own place that they can update their own homework. So I work with your general wheel and hub perspective, and I'm working on it in my context. Other people work on it in their context, and then gradually that one wheel becomes a personalized thing for people.
Yeah,
I don't even know
that's what it should be. I'm not
nobody's
saying like one person has to dominate one workshop. I just thought, how far should I take this? Because I built one workshop, but if people want more, I'll do more.
Okay. Courtney has a question.
Have I unmuted?
Yes.
Perfect. I had spoken to Andre about this like very, very, very briefly back during the Connections Day. And I just remembered one of the things that we touched on during that very short conversation was outreach. How are you going to get, because obviously we have all the KOTESOL people, and the KOTESOL people have connections, but the people who really, really need this are the Hagwon teachers, are the EPIC teachers. And in order to really organize something cohesive that would reach all the EPIC teachers is talking to the Ministry of Education and getting the MOE buy-in. And like, how have you thought about outreach? Have you thought about how you're gonna target the people who need these kinds of workshops in any way? And like, how would you want, say, this group to go about doing it?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and use another four-letter word, if you don't mind, which would be HELP, help. I need help with that. Like, I don't have a lot of like Hagwon teacher connections. I got a few, but we've got all of you. So I think it's just a matter of first getting to people who know other people, and then I don't think we would even have to do it necessarily through an MOE, although that would be great because then we do have the institutional capital that an MOE would carry. So, yeah, I raised this in the last slide of the PowerPoint. Like, we need to think about promotion. We need to think about outreach. So I have thought about it, but I only go back to that one four-letter word of help and a few other four-letter words too, but I won't get into those.
I think I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said, Wesley. I think it's this is just at the developing the idea stage. Even though I really appreciate and want to stress that I think everybody appreciates the amount of work that you've put in just to get it to this far. My first thought is whatever the content is, whether it's the 4 hours you spoke of or other pieces get added in there, it's the delivery. And the target audience are Hagwon teachers who are busy, and so that delivery really needs to be fine-tuned to their needs. And then once you've got that, then it's just a matter of evaluating its effectiveness and tweaking it. That's from my perspective.
That's an excellent point. Like you said, they are busy. Do they have 4 hours? Probably not. Can they catch one of the 4 hours, the one that they feel is most relevant to them and can help them the most? I think that's where we need to focus. I think that's a good point.
I guess the delivery then also depends on delivering of the raising awareness. You say, well, maybe they're interested in this one particular topic, but how do they find out about that? And so our marketing, I suppose, is what it is, of whatever the content's been made. That's sort of another part of the delivery, is just getting it in front of them, grabbing their attention.
Right. And so I thought, do we want to do in-person workshops? Do we want to do recorded and put it as video modules? Because at first I thought we would want to do in-person workshops, but then I thought to myself, how are we even going to get people to go to one?
You have to do it in a Hagwon, right? Or do it in a series of Hagwons, if that was the route you took, I guess.
Yeah. So that becomes a conundrum. So that's why we're here talking about it. So your opinions, everybody?
Hagwon owner buy-in, I guess.
Well, that's why I've always said we have to get on Discord. And that's why I keep hitting that drum, because it's the only place where everybody can have their own spot to post up what they're working on, why they're interested in working on it. And then if I'm the only one who does it, then sure, I'm happy with my results because I'm doing my homework. But if I don't know what anybody else is working on, I can't offer my insights, or I can't even know what other people are interested in. So, we could do these Zoom talks, but we could also do it on Discord too. And we could meet up more often as well.
Yes, this is where you can do it. I think we can have very beneficial discussions in these methods of communication.
I don't even think we know how to use Discord.
Some people do. Some people do, but we have to get more people to figure it out, I think.
I don't think we have a good consensus on how to use Discord and how it works in different ways.
Well, it's a learning curve, definitely.
Well, it's chat rooms. Just put stuff up, put stuff in the channels. Andre's done a great job of organizing different channels for different purposes, different sub rooms within the Discord server. So I want to take a moment to thank Andre for doing that, because goodness knows I haven't had the time to do that. So thank you very much, Andre, for that. And Rhett, too, for all of the work you've done as well. Rhett's made a website, but we're kind of,
I made the
retooling
Discord
that.
too. I
Yeah,
made the
Discord too.
Okay.
Thank you, ShinYeop.
All right, guys. Well, please keep in contact in Kakao and Discord, and we'll keep this conversation going.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Thank you so much.